In November 2019, the first ever sequenced ancient DNA from ancient Rome was published in a study at the Science magazine titled Ancient Rome, A Genetic Crossroads of Europe and the Mediterranean. In this video, instead of giving you a summary of what that study said about the ancient Roman DNA, I'm going to be making my own argument or pushing my own theory about what it shows. And a theory which, by the way, I was not the first one to come up with, and which disagrees with the most natural explanation that most people would give as to why the ancient Roman DNA results are the way that they are. I can make my own argument or push for my own theory here in this video because I've studied the ancient Roman DNA myself using a tool created at the Eurogenes blog called the G25 PCA. So if you're wondering what my evidence is for the theory I'm pushing for in this video, it's based on analysis I've done of the ancient Roman DNA using that G25 PCA. What both I, the original study, and any sensible person would agree on what the ancient Roman DNA shows is that the very early Romans in 800 BC to 500 BC were not the same people as DNA samples we have from people who lived in Rome when it was the capital of a fully formed Roman Empire from 0 AD to 500 AD. So the early Romans were indigenous people of central Italy, which is what you would expect. They were, by all intentions of the meaning, 100% European, and specifically they fit within the part of Europe they lived in, which is southwestern Europe. But the later Romans were not like this. The later Romans who lived in Rome for when Rome was a fully formed empire from 0 AD to 500 AD were primarily made up of people with very strange mixed ancestry from multiple different places in southern Europe and the Middle East, usually as a mixture of southern European and Middle Eastern ancestry. The most natural answer to give as to where these immigrants were coming from into Rome is to say that they were coming from many different countries from around the Mediterranean world and that they mixed with each other in Rome. But my conclusion, my theory, which, by the way, I was not the first one to come up with, is that they didn't come from all over the place, but instead that they were coming from just one place, the Greek colonies. The Greek colonies were a thing which existed along the Mediterranean Sea coast, mainly in southern Europe, a few centuries before the Roman Empire in the years 800 to 300 BC. This is where I think almost all the immigrants in ancient Rome were coming from, and by the way, I think specifically they are coming from the Greek colonies along the southern coast of Italy, just south of Rome. So really, I think the immigrants in ancient Rome weren't just not coming from all over the place, but they are coming from a place not that far away from Rome. I can understand why people would think that the immigrants were coming from all over the Mediterranean world, considering their ancestry was so mixed, but I think their mixed ancestry can be explained by them coming from the Greek colonies because these colonies connected people from many different places, from all the places that we see the ancient Romans had admixture from. So what I think is that these Greek colony immigrants into Rome had mixed ancestry already, making it deceptively seem like immigrants were coming from all over the place into Rome, when in reality, they were coming from just one place, and probably from a place not that far away from Rome. To give you a gist of just how mixed the ancient Roman DNA samples are and how confusing it is to figure out where they were coming from, I'm going to show you a spreadsheet that I made with their ancestry results that I got with using the G25 PCA. So here's the spreadsheet with the results. First, if you look at the Iron Age samples from early Rome, you see the vast majority of them are local people in central Italy, so 100% Italy. But you can also see that the immigrants from the Greek colonies, or at least that's where I think they came from, already started to show up in that period. Then you look at the samples from the imperial period, the vast majority of them are not indigenous to Italy. Most of them have mixed ancestry and so seemingly are derived from immigrants. This one is part Greek, part Levante/Syrian. That one part Sicily, part Syrian. That one part Greek, part Anatolian. That one part Sicily, part Syria/Levant with a little bit Northwest Africa. So all of them are very mixed like this, and it's just hard to figure out where they were coming to Rome from. So as much as the ancestry in these imperial individuals varies from individual to individual, and as mixed as they are, there are trends which have indications of where they were coming from. So the first trend is that 38 of 49 of them had mixed Southern European and Middle Eastern ancestry. That's the first rule. The second trend is of these 38, their ancestry comes almost entirely from 2 or more of these 5 countries: Greece, Sicily, and mainland Italy in southern Europe, and then Anatolia and the Levant in the Middle East. In case you don't know, Anatolia is what is today Turkey, and the Levant is a region which includes Syria, Lebanon, and Israel. The most natural explanation to give as to why the Imperial Romans were mixed between ancestry from these 5 countries is that tons of immigrants from each one of those countries were flooding into ancient Rome. But like I've been saying throughout this video, the theory that I think is correct, my theory is that they came from just one place, not 5 countries, but from one place, and that place was the Greek colonies. And I think the people in these Greek colonies already had that mixed ancestry and then brought it into Rome. So I've got 3 arguments or 3 ways of explaining the mixed ancestry of the Imperial Romans to prove this theory correct. The first argument is that very few of the Imperial Roman samples are close to being pure anything. Like I've been saying, they were very mixed. And to be more specific, only 5 of 49 of them were 100% anything. Only 6 of 49 of them were 70% anything. And only 14 of 49 of them were over 60% anything. So those are very small percentages. I mean, only 14 of 49 of them were 60% anything. That means that almost every single ancient, or the majority of the Imperial Roman samples were thoroughly mixed with between multiple different types of ancestry, which doesn't fit with the idea of tons of people from 5 countries immigrating into Rome. You would expect that to create lots of people who are 60% Greek or 60% Levante or 70% Anatolian. You wouldn't expect them all to be thoroughly mixed. So the reason why they're so thoroughly mixed is because they were mixed before they came into Rome. And they came from a place where people were already mixed like that. And like I've been saying, that place was the Greek colonies, where they had mixture process between people from those 5 countries, Greece, Sicily, Anatolia, Levant, Italy, began centuries earlier and was complete by the time they then immigrated into Rome. The second argument for this theory is that the Imperial Romans, only 11 of 49 have significant native mainland Italian ancestry. The vast majority of them, although very mixed with Southern European ancestry, do not have Italian ancestry. And what this suggests is that the admixture and intermarriage did not happen in Rome, Italy. It happened somewhere else outside of Italy, and that somewhere else was the Greek colonies, where people of Greek, Sicily, Levante, Anatolian origin, and sometimes Italian origin came together and mixed with each other, like I've been saying, centuries before the Roman Empire. And here's my third and final argument that the immigrants in ancient Rome almost all came from the Greek colonies. And this argument is that the 5 main countries involved in the mix that we see in the ancient Romans were countries that were colonized by Greeks or were directly linked to the Greek colonies. So, first of all, a good number of the Imperial Romans have Greek ancestry. So that fits with them. 19 of 49 of them have Greek ancestry, to be specific. And that fits with them being from the Greek colonies because Greeks created the colonies. And then 11 of 49 of them have ancestry from Sicily. And you have to ask, why is this little island involved in this? And it's because the Greeks had tons of colonies there. And so people from the Greek colonies with indigenous ancestry from Sicily were among the immigrants coming into ancient Rome. And as for the Levante ancestry in the Imperial Romans, which was actually the most common ancestry in them, 32 of 49 of the Imperial Romans had Levante ancestry. The Greeks did not have colonies here, but they did have a lot of contact with the people from the Levant called the Phoenicians. The Phoenicians were creating colonies along the Mediterranean Sea in the first millennium BC, just like the Greeks were. They were the other power in that region before Rome, other than the Greeks. And I think the Greek colonies in southern Europe had lots of contact with them, with the Phoenicians, and were intermixing with them, and can then explain the Levante ancestry in the Imperial Romans. This is backed up by the fact that the vast majority, 25 of 32, of the Imperial Romans with Levante ancestry have, in addition to that, significant Southern European ancestry. So you have to explain, why were people from the Levant and Southern Europe mixing with each other? And the best explanation is they were doing it because of interaction between the Greek colonies in Southern Europe and the Phoenicians. And so more evidence of Phoenician-Greek colony admixture comes from the 11 Imperial Romans with Sicilian ancestry, because not 10 of them have North African admixture and usually Levante admixture in addition to that. And that this fits with people from the Greek colonies in Sicily and the Phoenician colonies in Sicily admixing with each other, because most of the Phoenician colonies were in northern Africa. So if you have people from the Greek colonies in Sicily admixing with them, that can explain why most of them also have North African ancestry in addition to the Phoenician Levante ancestry. Now, as for the 13 of 49 imperial Romans with significant Anatolian ancestry, which was the last of the 5 countries other than Italy that imperial Romans had a lot of ancestry from, this can be explained by the fact Greeks had tons of colonies there in Anatolia. And if you look closely at the samples with Anatolian ancestry, 7 of them have it specifically from Western Anatolia. And of those 7, all also had Greek ancestry. So they look like indigenous people from Anatolia mixing with their Greek colonizers, and then these people from the Greek colonies in Anatolia then moving into ancient Rome. So that's it. Those are my arguments for why the immigrants in ancient Rome were coming from the Greek colonies.